Livable City, a magazine for architects, planners, designers, developers, leaders. Learn how great cities around the world make it work. Subscribe at mylivablecity.com.
Hello everyone. Welcome to the Daida Global Awards Ceremony 2023, organized and hosted by My Livable City, an international knowledge platform focused on urban sustainability and livability. I'm Yamini Kumar, a fellow architect based in Bangalore, India, and part of the My Livable City team. I'll be hosting the award ceremony today. Next slide, please. Thanks. I will begin today's event by giving you a small introduction to this year's program and theme. This will be followed by Liesl Vivier, who will tell you about the Daida Foundation and some of their projects. Mithali Chowdhury will then speak about My Livable City and their various initiatives. Next, Shyam Khandekar will talk about the jury process and announce the winners, who will then be invited to present their work. Next slide, please. Every year, Daida announces a theme for the awards. In 2021, the theme was the inclusive city. In 2022, it was climate change. And in 2023, it was cities for all, addressing minorities. Next slide, please. Let me take you through Daida Foundation's vision for this theme. By their very definition, cities are places for a diversity of people. Women and men, old and young, poor and rich, religious and non-religious, and not just for healthy individuals, but also for people who may be physically or mentally challenged. A happy city is one in which the minorities feel welcome and safe, where they have the ability to thrive, just like everyone else. Not only is it morally right to let each minority contribute to their city's progress, but a case can be made that the more the city enables this, the more it will prosper economically, making it more resilient. Through the public transportation they offer, the employment they create, the accessibility of public spaces, and the creation of affordable housing, cities can welcome minorities. This awards edition invited entries from students of master's programs on topics which address this issue and suggested ways of improving their conditions in cities, either through research or design, or both. This year, Daida received 38 thesis submissions from 20 participating institutions from 6 countries. These submissions proposed ideas across 7 countries. An international jury shortlisted 9 finalists. This process will be further explained as the session progresses. Next slide, please. I'd first like to call upon Liesl Vivier, Daida board member, to speak about the Daida Foundation. Liesl is an architect urban planner in Zimbabwe and the Netherlands. She is the deputy head of the Department of Urban Development in Almere, the Netherlands. She works as an urbanist on large-scale projects of urban regeneration. Over to you, Liesl.
Thank you, Yamini. And on behalf of the Daida Foundation, I would like to extend a warm welcome to everybody attending this award ceremony. I would also like to use this opportunity to tell you a little bit more about our foundation. Daida was set up about 7 years ago in Holland, And although we are a small foundation, we have a global outreach. May I have the next slide, please? Oh, the previous slide, please. Yes, that's right. Our mission is to support institutions or groups of individuals involved in improving the infrastructure and the living conditions of vulnerable citizens in cities of the developing world. And with groups of individuals, we mean people in the society who as a group, identify a problem that they would like to address. Our support to institutions and to groups of individuals is given in the form of donations. And those donations can be used to implement projects, to educate people. The donations can be also used to fund research or to spread information. For example, to fund the publication of a book or to fund a film. Because we are a small organization, we don't have a huge controlling mechanism in place. So many of our donations are given to people within our network, who are people who we know and people who we trust. So many applications also come to us through our own network. May I have the next slide, please? There are 5 board members in the Daida Foundation, and 3 of those people are involved in urban planning and also in developing countries. And that is Sham Kandakar, of course, who is the chair. He is an urban planner. Myself, I'm also an urban planner, and Leo Loder, who is a development economist in the Netherlands. We also have Arie van der Ven on our board. He is a consultant in public services, and Siddharth Kandakar, who is an expert in affordable housing, and he's working in the Netherlands. May I have the next slide, please? As I said before, although we are a small foundation, we have a global outreach, and we have supported projects all over the world, from South America through to Africa, also in India, and far more to the east in Thailand. May I have the next slide, please? These are a selection of projects, of Daida projects that we have supported in the past, and I would like to tell you a little bit about a few of these projects. If you look at the top row, at the blue bubble, we have given funds for a publication on affordable housing and inclusive cities, and we did that in 2019. If you go to the top row on the right, we have a green bubble. That was a support for a neighborhood center that we helped fund to build in a district in Nairobi. And the neighborhood center is now used for as an education center for children in the neighborhood. It can also be used by societies in the neighborhood, but it is also for their activities. But it is also a place where people in the neighborhood can just come together and where they can meet each other. We have also supported research into homelessness in the Philippines, which is the bubble in the middle on the left, and in the center in Thailand, in the yellow bubble, we have supported housing improvement and slum upgrading research in Thailand. We also have granted support over a number of years to orphans in Zimbabwe, where we pay their school fees. And we have also supported a training program in Zimbabwe over a number of years, where people who don't have work in Harare, in the capital city, are trained to become tailors, and they can either go and work in a factory or they can set up their own business afterwards. And another project that we have supported over the years is the leavers from care homes in India, that we support to sort of help them on their way once they need to leave the care homes when they are old enough. May I have the next slide, please? Something else that Daida does, of course, is we try and encourage research into the topics that are related to our mission. And so in the last 4 years, as Yamini said in the beginning, the last 4 years, we have identified themes each year where we give a grant to researchers of excellence in those themes. And this year, of course, was the theme Cities for All. So I hope you have some idea about what Daida stands for and the type of work that we do. And I will now hand back to Yamini, who will take you to the next stage of the presentation.
Thank you for your presentation, Liesel. I'd now like to call upon Mithali Chaudhry, Director of Brand Development and Operations, My Livable City, to talk about the Knowledge Platform. Mithali has close to 3 decades of experience in the publishing industry and has worked with the Times of India group of publications and the UK-based Which Group's India operations. Over to you, Mithali.
Thank you, Yamini. Welcome everyone to this special broadcast. I'd like to begin by thanking Daida Foundation for giving us the opportunity to organize their competition series, Daida Foundation Global Urban Thesis Award for the 3rd consecutive year. It's been a great learning experience and has added tremendously to our growth curve. For those of you who are joining us for the first time by way of participating in our competition or as audience, I'd like to offer a quick snapshot of our varied workscape. Next slide, please. My Livable City is a 10-year-old global language platform which was founded with the objective of highlighting issues that make cities across the globe inequitable from the perspective of affordable housing, inclusivity, environmental sustainability, etc. All direct outcomes of the staggeringly rapid need and speed of urbanization that we are witnessing around us. Over the years, a network of global exponents from the fields of urban design, city planning, landscape architecture, environmental planning, technologists, who in their role as practitioners, academicians, policymakers, part of organizations who work at ground level, have used our platform to deliberate these challenges and have shared their views on feasible solutions, shared case studies of successfully implemented projects. Next slide, please. We began our journey as a magazine publisher 10 years ago and have, over this span of time, successfully expanded our capacities or capability of presenting our knowledge in different formats, such as, next slide, please. Our magazine is published 2 times in a year. These the issues are dated January, June, and July, December. Our issues are theme-based. We have also published 6 books. Our latest book is called Streets for All. You can see the cover image of this book on your screen. Next slide, please. We have organized 3 conferences. Next slide, please. We also conduct short-term certificate programs in collaboration with globally reputed academic institutions. The course is usually held at our partner institute's campus. Next slide, please. Our other 3 initiatives entail organizing knowledge tours, customized workshops, and corporate campus activation. I'd like to add that we've conducted a knowledge tour to Netherlands and workshops for a few state government bodies in India. Next slide, please. Our current editorial bench strength spans 16 countries, and we have showcased projects and ideas from over 45 countries on our platform. Next slide, please. So this is the kind of varied work that we do. I request you to visit our website to read more about these activities. Do follow us on social media to track our work. We also have a few free reading articles on our website that will help you sample our content. Every subscription received, every book purchased encourages us to do more, to do better. Now, moving on to today's event. I'd like to congratulate all the finalists for having made it till here, and best wishes for the final announcement. Before I sign off, I'd like to make two announcements. Similar to Daida Foundation's engagement with young minds, My Livable City too has always given space to new voices to showcase their ideas of improving urban infrastructure, which will help cities become more livable, sustainable, and inclusive. Consistent with this approach, all winning theses will be published in our next issue, that is July-December 2024. I've just shared the ethos of My Livable City and the profile of our editorial contributors. I'm sure that not just the winners, but their colleges, their mentors will also be proud to see the thesis being published alongside articles written by experts. Also, as an encouragement to all the 9 finalists to keep up their good work, they each will be gifted an annual subscription to our content. I hope that our platform aids your learning process and you'll continue to associate with My Livable City as you gather experience in your career. That's all from me. Thank you for your time. Over to you, Yamini.
Thank you for your presentation, Mithali. I'd like to invite Shyam Khandekar, founder and chairman of the Daida Foundation. Next slide, please. Shyam is an architect, urban planner, and urban designer. He is also the co-founder of My Livable City and is an author and editor. My Livable City has published 3 books under his guidance: Affordable Housing Inclusive Cities, Designing for Sustainability Through Upcycling, and Streets for All, 50 Ideas for Shaping Resilient Cities, published in 2022, has been edited by him. Over to you, Shyam.
Good morning or good afternoon to all those attending this program today. It's very interesting. The world seems to be going up in flames at this moment, and it's really, whether you talk of the wars in Ukraine or Gaza, or what we are doing to the climate. And people of my age sometimes become pessimistic. And it's only when we see young people like you dealing with topics of social relevance that it gives us a sense of optimism. So welcome to you all, and the mentors who have guided you. I hope some of them are listening in. Thank you for guiding these students to such socially relevant thesis. Some time back, we had the presentation of the shortlisted candidates, and that was listened to, and there was also a Q&A session following that. which was done by the jury members. So I'd like to introduce those jury members once again to you. So one of them is Liesel Vivier, who's also a member of the board of Daida, and who just now spoke about what Daida does. She's an urban planner, originally from Zimbabwe, for many, many years based in the Netherlands. Then we have Claudio Oscioli Jr. He's an architect and urban planner with an enormous amount of experience. He's been consultant to more than 30 countries and expert program manager on all sorts of issues, but particularly on housing and slum upgrading. And he has been consultant to organizations such like Habitat and other UN organizations. Then we have the fourth jury member, Dr. Anita Patil Deshmukh, a US-trained neonatologist by profession who worked in Chicago for many, many years, came back to India to work and lead an NGO called Pukar with its barefoot researchers, where they give a chance to people from the bottom of the pyramid to also take part in some sort of research help, and so that later on they can get some jobs. And she was awarded the Innovator of the Year award from the Harvard School of Public Health in 2012, and very recently an honorary PhD from Bradford University in UK. My background has already been told, so I will not delve on it anymore. So four of us, I think we had a reasonably broad perspective. We covered a reasonably broad perspective of what is happening in our fields and what's happening to cities and the issues which are related. May I have the next slide, please? After the presentation of the 9 shortlisted people, which was done about a month back, the jury deliberated over what we should do, because we had the possibility of giving the first, second, and third prize, and we have the possibility of a 5,000 euro extra prize money, which we can distribute in one way or the other. So we went about it in a particular way, and then at the end we came to the conclusion that it would be best if all the 4 juries retreat and each of us gives points to the shortlisted candidates. The interesting thing was that there were 2 candidates who were very, very, very close to each other and were above the list. So we have decided. So we didn't want to make a distinction between the 2 because they were so close to each other that we didn't want to make a distinction between the 2. And then there were 3 candidates which followed at some distance, but also very close to each other, so close to call that we had this issue of what to do with these 3 candidates. Do you want to exclude 1 or 2 out of them while they are very close to each other on a technique, simply because one has got 1 point less or 1 point more? So we have come with a solution which we haven't done in any of these years earlier. But what we have decided is, can I have the next slide, please? Before I go there, I missed this particular slide. I'm sorry. That this time, these were the institutions which participated. And many of these institutions have participated in earlier years, but every year we get a couple of new ones. I think this time we had the one from Italy, there was one, and a couple of them from India, which were new. But these are the institutions which participated in this year's competition. May I have the next one, please? And all of you who participated, you took the projects the thesis which you submitted were obviously specific to some particular country or a city, and these were from 7 different countries and 26 cities around the world. Yes, please. Next, please. So the 9 shortlisted participants, for those who are, just to recap, can I have the next slide, please? These are the 9 shortlisted candidates. And like I said, we went about trying to find out how to award the prizes. Now, the interesting thing, I'll just go back a little, because the interesting thing is that many of you dealt with minorities in totally different ways. So some discussed issues of large groups, some discussed issues of smaller groups. Some were talking about children, like Mana Labib talks about in Egypt. Some were talking about people who waste pickers, like Anuja Netalkar did, or like Himanshu did, about people, how their situation is worsened because of climate issues and sanitation issues. Pranita Sawan talked about the rural livelihoods of people in rural areas in Maharashtra and India. Shinosuke Vaswa talked about the indigenous people in living in cities next to large African cities, etc., etc. So they were quite different from each other, and yet they were very interesting. So we came to the following conclusion, having decided on the points. Can I have the next slide, please? Yes, the winners. Before I go to the winners, and suddenly I do want to say one thing. All of you are about to enter into a profession where you can really make a difference. Please be aware of, realize that, be aware of it, and take the chances which you get in your profession, because things which you do can make lives for so many people, hundreds, if not thousands, maybe 100,000s of people, make a difference to them. So do engage, continue to engage in such issues which you have also discussed about in this thesis. Okay, back to the winners. I'm going back and forth, keeping the suspense, but here are the winners. So the winners, what we decided was, can I have the next one, please? So what we decided was we are going to give joint third prize to 3 candidates. And in order to make the prize also financially relevant, what we have decided is we are adding the 4,000 euros, which is available for the third prize, together with the 5,000 for the follow-up. So 9,000. We are distributing it equally among 3 candidates. So 3,000 each. These 3 candidates are, can I have the next slide, please? Myrna Labib from Ain Shams University, who has written about the impact of streets' physical characteristics on children's independent mobility, a case of study from New Cairo, Egypt. I congratulate you, Myrna, on behalf of the jury, but I also want to congratulate your mentors, Professor Dr. Mohammad Salhin and Professor Dr. Manal Abu El Ela. So you are one of the 3 third prize winners, and you will get 3,000 euros from us, plus your article will get published in My Livable City. The second joint third prize winner is Malvika Suresh from the School of Planning and Architecture, Bhopal, India. She writes about reimagining the cultural landscape of handloom weavers of the Shaliyar community in Balrampur in India. Kerala, if I'm not wrong, India. Right, she said, nods, yes, and she smiles, so it is right. So congratulations, Malvika. Congratulations to School of Planning in Bhopal in India, and to your mentor, Dr. Sonal Tiwari. The third joint third prize winner is, may I have the next slide, please? Zanat Khani from the University of Twente, Netherlands. She talks about a topic, environmental justice, and assessing the scope of nature-based solutions with the capability approach. And her case study is done in Dhaka, in a neighborhood of Dhaka in Bangladesh. So she's the third joint third prize winner. And congratulations, Sanat, and congratulations to Dr. F. Atun and Professor Dr. K. Pfeffer of the University of Twente, Netherlands. So these were the 3 joint third prize. Now we go to the first and the second prize. Can I have the next slide, please? So here we had this issue of 2 people who were so close to each other that we did not know what to do. So what we have decided is that we are going to call them joint first prize of winners. And there are 2 of them, and there is no second prize as such. So the money also we will distribute equally between the 2. So may I have the next slide, please? So the joint first prize, there are 2 of them. They will share 6,000 of the first prize and 5,000 of the second. So 11,000 will be, so 5,500 each will be given to the following 2 candidates. One of them is, may I have the next slide, please? Girisha Sethi of University of Stuttgart and Ain Shams University, the joint program. Who's right, whose city? Conflicting claims and contestations around the right to the city of informal settlements in Delhi, India. The study was done in Germany and in Egypt, Egyptian universities, but the case study is in India. Once again, congratulations, Girisha. Congratulations to Professor Dr. Muhammad Salid again here. So you have 2 of your students have won a prize this time, and Professor Dr. Astrid Lay. The second joint first prize winner is Himanshu Satvi. He's from Sept University, India, and actually has addressed an issue which is for lesser number of people, but more directly compared to what Girisha's issue. Girisha has taken on a gigantic task, accelerating the climate resilient sanitation, a case of dal dwellers in Srinagar, India. Congratulations, Himanshu. Congratulations to Sept University and to Dr. Saswat Bandyopadhyay for guiding him. Congratulations to all of you, also those who have not won a prize but made the shortlist. And I wish you all the best and keep in touch, I will say. And I think with this, I'll hand over the mic again back to Yamini.
Thank you for your presentation, Shyam. And congratulations to all the winners. This was a fierce competition, and congratulations are in order for all 9 shortlisted candidates. I'd now like to invite Mona Labib, joint third prize winner, to present her work. Mona, please strictly limit your time to 8 minutes. Over to you, Mona.
Thank you, Yamini, and congratulations to all winners and finalists. I would like to present to you my thesis topic, which is about the impact of streets' physical characteristics on children's independent mobility, with a case study from New Cairo in Egypt. Next slide, please. A quick background about my topic is that the streets and public spaces are the spaces where children experience their first notion of independence, where they can encounter and develop their cognitive and social skills. So the UNICEF created this study where they asked children what do they think of their cities. For example, 65% of the participants said that they don't feel safe or protected in their environments, and 40% said that they don't feel their environments are resilient nor healthy. Next slide, please. So they created this chart distributed between the environmental protection and participation constraints, where they gathered all the constraints that the children face in their daily journeys that can impact their independent mobility. So what is children's independent mobility? It's basically the independence in free travel for a child to be able to walk safely and freely without a guardian. Next, please. So the importance of the CIM, that it makes the child be able to participate actively in their learning and leisure activities. They get more involved in their communities, enhance their problem solving and investigation skills, and so on. Basically, it creates an independent human. Next, please. My research problem is that the children's development is affected by their inability to interact fully with the urban spaces, influenced by the absence or low frequency of their independent mobility, as the neighborhood and its streets' physical characteristics do not focus on children as a priority. So my research aim is to identify the impact of these characteristics on CIM and investigate the quality of travel of the streets, also to detect the influential physical elements in those streets and explore other factors that can impact the street's quality. My research question is to what are the street's physical characteristics that can impact the CIM? Also, what's the relation between those characteristics and the frequency of CIM, and how the street's physical characteristics affects the choice of children? Next, please. So I started my thesis with understanding the guidelines for CIM divided between tangible and intangible, also to understand the indicators distributed between license, range, time, and destination that's also could be affected with the socioeconomic status, also to identify the street's elements that define a proper street for children, and understand the effect of street's physical characteristics on CIM. So my methodology is divided to two phases. Phase one is to identify the governmental schools in my study area, and then start with a data collection and sample the participants according to the age, gender, and socioeconomic class. Phase two is to identify the most used streets from the collected data from phase one and start the observation process and then define the condition of those elements. At last, to conclude, is to understand the perception of the children and their parents of their neighborhoods and to quantify the frequency of CIM. Next, please. So researchers declared that from 7 to 13 years old is the age where children can walk, cycle, and take public transportation on their own. So according to the UNICEF, they started to distribute facilities and utilities in the streets and the neighborhoods within a specific range according to the age of the children that they can access. Next, please. Also, the NACTO created this study where they defined the elements that should be in a proper street for a child to go through, like seating, transit stops, sidewalks, spaces for play, cycling infrastructure, and so on. Next, please. So the impact of the street's physical characteristics on CIM, that any deprivation in the infrastructure of transportation, the number of roads that the children have to cross, the traffic density and the vehicle speed, all of these can impact the perceived level of safety for a child or his parents. Next, please. So the scope of my study is to focus on children aged from 7 to 13 years old with a socioeconomic status from low to mid-income families. I'm also focusing on new generation cities in Egypt, as they are the new typical design. They were designed to attract people away from the center, and they have a high population growth through the past decade. Next, please. So my case study is in New Cairo, which is a settlement that have shown more success as a new city than other generation cities. And it's one of the first districts to be established in New Cairo, which introduces a stable, vibrant neighborhood for the study. Next, please. So I started with gathering the data about the neighborhood, with identifying the local streets and the local schools and the services and so on. And in the next slide, I started my data collection with taking the permission. Next, please. The permission from the New Cairo Education Administration to be able to access the children ethically and then go through phase one with the drawing activity, map activity for the children in the classrooms and the questionnaires for the children and their parents, and go on with phase two and start the observations of the streets collected from the collected data with the students. Okay, next, please. The next two slides are the answers of the children's questionnaires and the parents' questionnaires. Next, please. Also, this is the PST that identifies the satisfaction of the children and their parents. Next, please. So I collected all the data and formed this table to quantify the frequency of the children to be able to understand who of the categories from age, gender, or socioeconomic status that have the highest to the lowest CIM frequency. And in the next slide, please, we can see from the charts that the boys from the low-income families have the highest rate. That was the data collection of phase 2. We identified the, next please, identified the most used streets. And in the next slide, I started to identify the elements of each of those streets, and from the sidewalks, the barriers, next please, the barriers that they face, and all the other elements to identify their conditions. Next please. So the street's characteristics impact on CIM is divided to 2 points: the obstacles within the CIM range and the elements to enhance streets quality, which is divided, which is approved by the literature and also the parents' recommendation. And then in the next slide, we can see that there are other variables, next slide please, that impact the CIM frequency, like demographics and the parents' perceptions. So at last, my conclusion, next slide please, is that there are certain elements in the streets that can impact the CIM frequency more than others, like darkness, physical barriers, and so on. Also, it was concluded that the most used streets are the most crowded with more eyes on the street, that makes parents feel safer. And the second most used streets are those who scored better rates. And the last conclusion is that the boys were found to have higher rates than in CIM frequency than girls, and those in low-income families have higher rates than mid-income families. Next, please. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Marna, and congratulations on such an amazing project. I'd like to invite Malvika Suresh, joint third prize winner, to present her work. Please limit your time to 8 minutes. Over to you, Malvika.
Good afternoon, everyone. My thesis topic is reimagining the cultural landscape of handloom weavers of Shalia community in Balramapuram. So my thesis aims to reinvent and revive the place identity of Balramapuram to promote the craft of handloom weaving through the landscape design of the neighborhood, and thereby creating a better work environment for the weavers and keeping the art alive for the generation to come. So these are the most ancient and the first GI tagged handloom product in Kerala, and these communities are brought by Maharaja in 1800 from Tamil Nadu. Also, according to the government records, there were 300 Chalia families, and among them, only 30 are actually engaged in the weaving. You can also see in the graph that from the 2012 to 17, that the decline. So basically, due to the rapid globalization, along with the declining condition of the industry, the community started looking for alternative jobs. Also, it is located only 18 kilometers away from the Trivandrum International Airport, thereby facilitating the cultural tourism. Now, coming to the historical evolution, we can see that these are the population growth from 1840 to 2023. Here we can see a linear trend of growth. Also, we can see the weaving workspace got converted into abandoned structures, and the fences separated each plot from the backyard. And these are the two illustrations depicting the past and present. So in the first one, you can see these are the traditional houses, Agraharam, which reflecting their tradition and the culture. And now we can see the change in house forms and functions. Similarly, earlier, the Pongal was celebrated in front of the temple. Now it's been shifted to in front of the houses. Similarly, earlier the street was very much active with the pre-weaving activity, that is sizing. But now, due to the traffic and the lack of vegetation, the sizing activity got completely vanished. So the modern lifestyle reduced the street interaction, impacting the community's social value. And this is a section taken through the street towards the backyard. Here also we can see that earlier this space was very much active with the pre-weaving activity in Ulchauter, but these backyards are currently divided by the fences, which utterly damaged the quality of that area. And coming to the base map, we can see the first street, this one, it is having a character like it is from commercial to residential, finally leading to a temple. And the second one is Double Street, where we have the residential area on either side, and in between, we have a lot of activities. Like there are three temples parallelly placed. In between, there are auditorium, library, working spaces, green spaces, vacant lot, etc. And then coming to the other two areas, which are completely residential plot. And coming to the vegetation map, which reveals very less vegetation is seen on either side of the street. Also, now building age map. So the most traditional buildings in the settlement are replaced by the new one, with only very few renovated in the old style. So it's very crucial to ensure that both the new and the old building maintain the settlement character, and it should be strictly enforced. And ownership. The red color highlighted the area which comes under the temple ownership, which is also a potential space for the tourist network. And coming to the building height map, observing the building height map, it reveals that most of the agraharams are G and G+1. So also the temples are the one with the highest gopuram dominating all the structures. But nowadays, this agraharam typology is varying, like 3+4, 3+1 are coming up. So some building code should be adopted in order to maintain the character of the street. And coming to the cultural map, we can see that all the pre-weaving activities are happening in the last two streets and the weaving in the double street. So we can propose an experiential trail which start from last to the first. Now coming to the activity map, we can see the most happening place is the double street with a lot of activities which include three temples, shopping activities, festivals, ceremonies, everything. So yet it is very congested and also lacking resting spaces beyond the residential veranda. Additionally, absence of the shading trees also make the street interactions very challenging and difficult. So the concept is basically combining the ideas of landscape and the heritage together. That is reuniting the fragmented approach, natural environment, built environment, and the cultural practices. So thereby we can ensure that the needs of the local communities and their needs. So basically, this is achieved through these 8 principles. That is the preservation of the cultural heritage, sustainable tourism, integrating green spaces, natural features, promoting biodiversity, community involvement, conservation of built heritage, legibility, and accessibility. So coming to the CLTP, this is the plan. So this is a transformative journey through the vibrant tapestry of Kerala's landscape, exploring the art and culture of weaving. It's a unique experiential trail not just about the product, but about the captivating process behind them. So this was the existing entry where the whole process was hidden from the people. So instead of a conventional approach, I want to showcase all the fascinating process behind the scene, adding a new layer of experience. So it starts from here, the first one, that is a trail entry, where the traditional Kerala style gateway surrounded by the urban structure, creating a visual focus, further leading to a green corridor, that is a vibrant pathway dominated by the lush greenery, which further lead to the serene pause points, intermittent areas to connect with the nature and relax, then leading to the seating areas provided to enjoy the landscape to connect with the people. Then weaving windows, where these are the observation point for the first weaving activity. Here you can see without causing disturbance, we can see the first weaving activity. Then to the anticipation, path anticipation, which create a sense of curiosity about the journey ahead. Then it will be leading to the interpretation center, where the weavers will be explaining all the process behind it. And finally, they will be leading to the street, where they could see all the pre-weaving activities. Then it will be leading to the 9th, that is the sizing activity, the roadside display of sizing process for the visitors. Then finally to the community forestry and the farming here, where they could learn about the natural dye process and purchase the related products. Then to the community stall, where the locals will be sending the authentic Kerala food for the increased income generation. And finally, they will be led to the celebratory plaza, which is the culmination point for work, learning, relaxation, shopping, and celebration. So basically, this is like from a product to process, celebrating the art of weaving and culture. Now, also, all the abandoned buildings are this yellow color marked. All the abandoned buildings got converted into workshop for the students. Thereby, we can integrate the youth into the revival of this precious art. So this is the master plan. And this is a zoomed in version of the double street. So earlier, it was like a shed-like structure, like this was the arrangement. So I converted this into a built and unbuilt spaces like this. So earlier it was like two sides there will be residential and a shed-like space. It got converted into traditional Kerala structures with the vacant spaces like alternative green and workspace. So in some spaces, seating areas are provided, and in some vendors with the selling street food. Also, okay. Also the interlocking pavers were replaced with a stone cobbled street. And now coming to the other part, the second portion, that is the area between the temple and the auditorium. There was a vacant plot. This left unused, this much area, so which I converted into a flexible space. Like this was the other arrangement, alternative built and unbuilt. And here it is like a flexible space where it's the dynamic lawn for the evening play. And also the other side, it provided some small seatings and a pavilion for nearby library. And also this can act as a multifunctional space during the festival time. And the plant palette was chosen in this way. Like I introduced the color dyes. So for that, this palette is used. And also for the double street, which comes between the three temples. So those are Agastya temple. So the plant palette is sacred flowering plants favored by the Agastya Swami, which is also used for the temple offering. Also, native trees are used as a sustainable approach. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Malvika, and congratulations on a fantastic project.
Thank you so much.
I'd like to invite Zanat Ghani, to joint third prize winner, to present her work. Please limit your time to 8 minutes. Over to you, Zanat.
Okay. While growing up in a small town in the northern part of Bangladesh, I had the opportunity to experience nature throughout my childhood. On the front side of our house, there was a fruit garden, and on the back side of our house, there was a bamboo thicket. Every house had open spaces and ponds surrounding it. Just 5 minutes away from my house, acres after acres were covered with crop field. But unfortunately, when I visited my home 3 years back, everything was covered with residential buildings and concrete surfaces, with no greeneries to be seen anywhere. This is not only the scenario of my hometown, but this is the scenario of mostly all of the urban areas throughout Bangladesh. Newly formed urban areas with lower income communities suffer from environmental injustice, whereas higher income communities are planned with adequate green and blue elements. So, based on these personal experiences, I have chosen the topic of environmental justice, assessing the scope of nature-based solution with a capability approach for my master's thesis. So, what is environmental injustice? Environmental injustice is the unequal distribution of environmental goods and bads, which can be divided into three dimensions, which are recognitional environmental injustice, procedural, and distributional environmental injustice. Here you can see a picture of a lower income community with very limited green and blue elements, whereas a higher income community with planned green and blue elements in forms of lakes and parks. So governments have been trying to renature the cities by incorporating green and blue elements. However, this can create the effects of green gentrification, where lower income communities lose the ability to live in the regenerated community because of increased cost of living. So, based on this, I have identified like my primary research objective was how traditional nature-based solution promote urban environmental justice in Dhaka, Bangladesh. The sub-objectives are based on how we can identify environmental injustice, how we can recognize people's needs and preferences, and involve people in the design of easy-to-implement nature-based solution to ensure environmental justice in their community. The study area was selected to be Dhaka City Corporation because of its location in the Global South, nature-based solution not being explored in the context of Dhaka City, and proof of diminishing environmental elements in the city corporation area. So the first objective was to construct environmental justice index to identify an area for further interventions. 15 indicators were selected to create the environmental justice index based on 3 categories: social disadvantages, environmental risk, and environment green and blue spaces benefits. So this is the environmental justice map that was created here. The dark green areas signifies areas which have more green and blue elements, whereas light colored areas have limited green and blue elements. And based on this, Kamrangichar area was selected to be the study area for further interventions because of its unique location surrounded by the river Buriganga, because of high buildup and low vegetation and irregular road pattern in the study area. There are some pictures of the study area where we can see garbage is dumped everywhere, regardless if it's the riverbank or the residential area. So in the next step, we try to identify some traditional nature-based solution by interviewing 12 experts of nature-based solution. Here are the nature-based solutions that were identified, which were categorized in 4 categories: a small scale low maintenance, a smaller scale high maintenance, a small scale, a larger scale low maintenance, and larger scale high maintenance. So balcony garden and rooftop garden can be termed as a small scale low maintenance, whereas wetland can be termed as larger scale high maintenance nature-based solution. We also conducted a stakeholder power mapping by intersecting power and interest, where we found that ministries and international organizations to be the high power, high interest stakeholders, whereas the community people, individual residents, and marginalized people are to be the high interest but low power stakeholders. So our next intervention was based on these high interest, low power stakeholders, where we applied the capability approach as a questionnaire survey to identify the needs and preferences and the required policy intervention areas in the community. So this is the conceptualization of the capability approach, where we identified it had elements such as resources, conversion factors, capability set, functioning, and well-being achievements. Here is a simplified example of how we conceptualize the capability approach. So if there is available space on the rooftop, then this can be termed as resources, but various conversion factors like lack of interest can tempt people not to have rooftop garden in their community. But if the desired functioning is to have a rooftop garden, interventions such as creating interest or monetary means can encourage people to have rooftop garden. So the main objective is to reduce the capability gap between these two. For that, we organized a nature-based solution co-design workshop with the community people and envisioned a desired future with nature-based solution and asked the people what kind of strategies are required for achieving that desired future. And then we identified some nature-based solution design principles, such as the nature-based solution should replace a specific, it should be a part of the whole system, then it should be an iterative process of communication and learning, and it should benefit both people and biodiversity. And then we integrated the strategies identified in the co-design workshop with the nature-based solution design principles to identify areas for policy interventions. So how we contributed to the overall environmental justice through the components of the thesis. Instruments such as Environmental Justice Index or the Capability Application contributed to the recognitional justice component, whereas the expert engagement and the community people participation contributed towards the procedural justice aspect, and a small-scale nature-based solution implementation design and the capability-oriented design principles contributed towards the distributional aspects such as accessibility and availability of nature-based solution of the environmental justice component. So we had several policy recommendations. However, I am focusing on recommendations for urban planning, which is to have just green enough community with a smaller scale nature-based solution. And the larger scale nature-based solution should be implemented outside the boundary of the lower income community. So the effects of gentrification gradually diminishes towards the center. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Zanna, and congratulations on a wonderful project. I'd now like to invite joint first prize winner Girisha Sethi to present her entry. Please limit your time to 8 minutes.
Hello all, I'm Girisha Sethi, a double degree master student graduate from the University of Stuttgart in Germany and Ain Shams University, Egypt. My thesis is titled Who's Right, Whose City? Conflicting Claims and Contestations Around the Right to the City concept of informal settlements in Delhi, India. My research looks at the concept of right to the city critically, a concept that has become a very popular part of urban planning discourse, but is unfortunately more widely used than it is understood. My thesis tries to investigate how the understanding of this concept finds implementation in different contexts. And I focus on how minorities in the city, especially economic minorities residing in informal settlement, are able to exercise or not their right to the city, as it comes around that these rights are often confronted with political, spatial, and socio-psychological contestations. In this context, I look at critically what the right to the city means for Jhuggi Jhopri or JJ clusters in Delhi, which is a form of informal settlements, by looking at the conflicting claims and contestation confronting the right to the city of the residents. I look at two JJ clusters as my sites for empirical study, the one that are on your screen right now. My broad research framework involves looking at the policy and planning structures at the city level for housing justice, as I use the framework of social justice to critically interpret the right to the city for housing of different residents in the city. So I look at planning and policy as top-down mechanisms for the distributive dimension of justice. I then look at the social movements happening in the city for participatory action, social organizations that are working closely with informal settlements in the city, and I critically interpret them for the procedural dimension of justice. The core of my research looks at what social and psychological associations the residents of the formal colonies in the city associate with Jhuggi Jhopri clusters. and how that closely relates to the status of adequacy or the lack of it in the informal settlements. I look at this integration for the recognitional dimension of justice. The three analyses are then integrated to interpret the housing justice that residents of informal settlements of JJ clusters have in Delhi, to interpret the conflicts and contestations to their right to the city. That is my broad research methodology, with the sub-questions and the methods and tools that I employed to collect my data, both at a secondary level and a primary level. My first part, as I said, was looking at policy and planning. So I traced the narrative of policies and different programs by the state, both at the national level and at the city scale, to look at what are the different provisions that have been given by the state to address the issue of low-income housing and slums coming in the cities. I looked at different programs that have been put forward, different agencies that were created to address the problem. The analysis of this showed me that at the level of the distributive dimension of justice, there are certain contradictions that exist within the government's framework. While the government claims to provide housing for all, there's been a trend year after year of a massive shortage of affordable housing for low-income residents in city. Also, the taxonomy that is used to define settlements in which low-income groups reside end up reinforcing or reproducing hierarchies as socio-political distinctions. The very fact that Jhuggi-Jhopri clusters are called so, which literally means shanties, and despite receiving de facto security of tenure, they continue to be addressed like that, in a way reinforce their segregation and sort of people looking down upon them. The taxonomy also enshrines their historic transgression, their history of how they've come in the city. Moreover, the policy framework also showed that year after year, there's been a deprivation of financial allocation for low-income communities in the city, and the private sector has shied away from taking up that job. The second part of my research looked at social movements. So those were the three case studies I investigated in the city of Delhi. I got lucky that during the time of my research, the Main Bhi Delhi campaign was active as the master plan of Delhi was under revision. So I could look at various campaigns and programs that were being run by social organizations to work closely with the residents of informal settlement to include them in the process of the revision of the master plan of the city. The analysis of these case studies of social organization and social movement showed that despite best efforts to voice the concerns of low-income communities, to create bottom-up initiative to address the gaps that exist in the city, these efforts remained piecemeal, given there was limited interagency communication between the varied movements that were taking place in the city. The gap also between the bottom-up movements and the decisions that were taken at the top remained unbridged. So in a way, there was a threat that some of these social movements may end up becoming some sort of potential tokenism, as the larger procedures of city planning remained uninformed and unaddressed. The third part of my research was where I interviewed the residents living in properties near the selected JJ clusters, and I also spoke to the residents of the JJ clusters. The two positions held by the formal and the informal residents also brought about a layer of contestations and contrasting claims. I parallel this with the study of the right to adequate housing, to the status of adequacy of different parameters in the two selected JJ clusters, including security, habitability, access to amenities. And the two analyses showed that the negative perceptions that were held by property owning residents against the residents of JJ cluster reflected more the lack of adequacy in their housing than any other socio-political standing. Their interviews reflected that the residents of property owning colonies expressed a presumed upper hand in their belongingness to the city, in their right to the city, and shied away from sharing that right with people who did not own housing in their neighborhood. The JJ clusters were also perceived as eyesores. They were associated with crime, filth, illegality, and were looked down and were stigmatized from participation in the public realm without shame. It showed the entire analysis that the residents of JJ clusters were denied distributive justice from the state's end, as well as recognitional justice from other actors in the city. Attempts that were undertaken by social movements to uphold the procedural dimension of justice also remained localized. In this context, the residents had little agency to legitimize their right to the city in ways they could afford. This makes one question what the right to the city really means in that context, where the ideas of inclusion, social equality, and international rights-based guidelines on one hand, and then we have market-oriented land economics, beautification-based development visions, and entitlements in the city that are guided by ownership. In that context, the right to the city of informal city dwellers become very hard to be interpreted and implemented. I concluded that these conflicts and contestation need to be met with consensus and compromise at the three levels of housing justice, from distributive, recognitional to procedural, in a way that residents have equal access to the resources the city has to offer. Finally, I put forward the recommendations that the right to the city needs to be translated from a vague goal to a set of tangible imperatives, social and political, that are easy to implement. These include the social function of land to be seen as commons in a way it promotes social housing in the city, and to break down to the right to the city into more tangible rights like right to adequate housing and right to urban citizenship. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Girisha, and congratulations on this amazing project. I'd like to invite joint first prize winner Himanshu Sathri to present his work. Please limit your time to 8 minutes. Over to you, Himanshu.
Good afternoon, all. Good afternoon, all. I'm Himanshu from Sept University. My topic is accelerating the climate resilient sanitation, which is a case of dull dwellers in Srinagar, India. So this thesis is guided by Dr. Shashwat Banapal. So talking about the city profile, the area jurisdiction which I am looking into is the Srinagar Municipal Corporation, which has a population of around 11.27 lakhs. If we look at the condition of the WASH and the city, the numbers are surprising, where only 33% of the whole city coverage by sewerage network. That means 67% of the area practices on-site sanitation, and this 67% number is questionable, and this thesis looks more into these numbers. So if we look at the climate hazard which Srinagar is facing, potentially damaging and life-threatening river floods are expected to occur at least once in next 10 years, and this may and the present hazard level may increase in future. So, looking at the condition, this is the image of 2011 flood, where you can see the whole city of Srinagar into the waters. So, if you look at the frequency of events in last 60 years, 9 times the flood has occurred and has been devastating and disturbing to all the communities of Srinagar. So if we look, I tried here to do the vulnerability assessment towards flooding. So I tried to calculate the number of households, and the number was shocking that 49% of the households are at the risk of flooding. So my study is more looking into the downtown of the Srinagar, that is the center portion of the center core of the Srinagar, which is the Dal Lake. So, what is this Dull Lake and the Dull communities? So, so these communities have a symbiotic relation of community and water. This community is close to sanitation, flood hazard, which has source of livelihood. They are doing farming over water, their own social and cultural, and the main aspect of tourism. So my research aimed at analyzing the climate change impact on sanitation in vulnerable dull dwellers of Srinagar. So the objectives were very simple in three steps. First one was to understand the relationship between climate change and sanitation, then understanding the vulnerability and understand the most vulnerable and marginalized, to analyze the factors which are leading to unsafe sanitation environment. And the last one was to make a way forward by identifying strategies towards improving the sanitation of the dull dwellers. So this is the methodology, where my this was a study of 4 month intensive study, which was carried out in three steps. The first one was where I tried understanding the climate change and the theories of resilience and the vulnerability assessment, which I tried doing. Then I had a first site visit where there were visual documentations done, setting up of context for the Srinagar was done, and then coming back, I tried to understand the symbiotic relationship of dual dwellers and water, understanding their house. Then again, the second site visit was carried out where I tried understanding the housing typologies and the relation with sanitation, how the housing typology is affecting the sanitation of the people. And there was around 28 kilometers of reckoning survey which was carried over water, in the inner alleys of the hamlets of the Dal. There were focus group discussions, which were carried out with the Srinagar Development Authority, Lake Development Authority. Total 122 surveys, household surveys were done. Coming back after the site visit, I tried understanding the best practices which were correlating with the issues. And again, there was a site visit, third site visit, where these solutions were discussed with the stakeholders. So basically, who are these dull dwellers? There's this social structure, their own social structures. There are three kind of people who live over this water. They are the farmers, the houseboat owners, and the fishermen. Um, they live over water. These are the floating gardens. If you look at the number one, it's an initial floating garden where the land is being reclaimed, at the right side image you can see a raised dam, which is a 20-year-old floating land, which is now used as an for an agriculture purposes. So let's see what are the issues which, in terms of sanitation, these dull dwellers are facing. So just to give a gist, the it's a community of 60,000 people of area of around 24 square kilometer. And it has this whole lake has around five basins, out of which the dull dwellers settle on the fifth. This is the footprint of my surveys, which were carried out, the stakeholder consultations and the reckonings. And then further, as I said, I tried to understand the sanitation in terms of the value chain. So value chain in terms of how is the accessibility, how is the containment, how is the conveyance, and how is the disposal of this whole system, whole sanitation system of these dull dwellers. So I tried understanding what are different typologies of housing. So there were three types of housing typologies which were identified. So each typology was which was scanned through through the whole value chain, and different issues were identified. For example, this is one typology where there are kacha houses along the street, where there is no containment facility. The toilets are hanging directly over the lake, and the whole whole fecal sludge is directly poured into the lake without any storage or any conveyance happening. So it is also impacting during the times of flooding when the water rises. This whole polluted water then backflows into the toilet, and the access to sanitation becomes very difficult. These are the existing photos, like which of the hanging toilets which are in these communities. This is another typology where there is containment happening, but since there is no conveyance is like the emptying of the system. This emptying is being neglected by the local authorities, and then it is again going back into the lake, which is polluting the ecology of the lake. Again, during the times of flood, this is again there is a backflow of water, and the whole household is goes through an disturbance. Yeah. So these were different types of housing typologies. Then again, different surveys were taken and study was taken in terms of how it is affecting the sanitation, how the backflow is affecting. Like the very interesting numbers, disturbing numbers. That is, 4 in 10 households open defecate during the flooding, for which around 78% of dirt dwellers lack access to sanitation. This was my like the points where the research ended, and the whole summarization of problems ended, where I came to know that there is a lack of access to sanitation during flooding and inefficiency of containment and conveyance facility. So I came up with a project which is drains, that is dull resilience and access to improve non-sewer sanitation, where different solutions were given, different pilots were given at each stage, which would help these communities. It was a 5-year long-term plan with in coordination with the local authorities. There was this one pilot which was providing sanitation facility to the females of the dull, and a uh, and a access. Uh, this is the just a minute. Can I continue? Yeah. So this is just a visualization of the pilot that is good. It is a one-point solution for the females who have no access to the sanitation facility, where they were provided with a floating sanitation facility. There was this containment facility solution which was given. This is a before-after image where I tried giving an on-site conveyance and treatment facility uh, for each household, and which literally costed for rupees 12,000 rupees. And this was my whole project, which ended up giving solutions for the whole sanitation value chain. That's it. Thank you so much, and congratulations to all.
Thank you for your presentation, Himanshu, and congratulations on this outstanding and sensitive project. Daida will be in touch with the winners in the coming week. With this, we come to the end of the awards program. Sensitive intelligent designs are the need of the hour, and the presentations we saw today were incredibly inspiring. When I graduated, the Daida Foundation hadn't yet been established, and it was truly amazing to see all of your thought provoking projects and also to get a glimpse into the work that Daida is doing. Thank you to the winners for presenting their work to us. Thank you to all our viewers, shortlisted candidates, and speakers for being here with us from across the world. Thank you to the organization team of My Livable City, Shashikala Venkatraman, Seema Taneja, and Sheetal Kumbhare. Last but not least, we'd like to thank the tech team, Dreamcast, for making this happen. Please show us the next slide. The next slide, please. There are 2 slides. The competition theme for 2024 will be announced in the next few weeks. All announcements are hosted on My Livable City's website. Please do have a look and please spread the word. Please show us the last slide. We'd like to leave you with this quote by the famous American philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson. Do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. We hope that you continue to inspire the world with your work throughout your careers. For any further questions, please get in touch with My Livable City. Have a great day, everyone, and see you again next year.